Number 5.
Bulelani Mapai is also known as the Torleni serial killer or the monster of Torleni. For 5 years, a small secluded rural area lived with a deranged psychopath Bulelani Mapai, who brought nightmares and terror to the rural villagers of Torleni, raping and hacking vulnerable women and children in brutal fashion that shook the entire province and nation of South Africa. He was sentenced to 625 years for evil deeds he committed between 2007 and 2012.
The man who butchered her mother, 15-year-old sister, and her 1-year-old daughter in their sleep. He then raped their lifeless bodies.
He would target households that had no men to protect and disturb him from performing his sick necrophilia acts. He claims he committed his acts as a way to satisfy his sexual desires. He went to households that he was familiar with and worked for as a handyman or a gardener. During his sentencing, the entire community gathered in celebration and prayer for the end of his terror and savage killings and rapes. He also confessed to a social worker that he would have continued to kill if he was not captured. In one instance, Mapai killed an elderly woman and her 13-year-old daughter, and proceeded to perform sexual acts on their corpses. He also murdered the woman's 15-month-old grandson, hacking him to death. A 12-year-old boy survived the attack, but has been left brain damaged due to this brutal attack.
I regret my actions. I really do apologize to the families for what I've done.
But it was too much for Mngilwa.
Number 4.
Cedric Ma'Aker, also known as the Wemerpan Killer. Cedric is a married father of 4 children. He was born in 1965 in Limpopo, and was known to be a handyman, but became a serial killer after committing at least 27 killings between 1996 and 1997. He was convicted of 27 murders, 26 attempted murders, 14 rapes, 41 armed robberies and many other offenses. His overall jail sentence is 1,341 years in prison. Cedric was known as the Wemerpan Killer because this was the area where he targeted most of his victims. Wemerpan is a lake in Johannesburg which is often visited by people for family picnics, music festivals, and it is also a place where couples often visit in the evenings. He also went on to commit more murders during his business robberies in the city. He targeted businesses and used a hammer to bludgeon his victims to death. Due to this lack of pattern in his killings, the South African police created 2 separate criminal profiles. One was for the Wemerpan Killer, and the other was for the hammer murder. Cedric was a well-rounded killer who murdered lone couples, business owners, minibus taxi drivers, and anyone who was in a secluded place with him. He used a hammer, rocks, knives, guns, and anything he could to kill his victims. In Wemerpan, he targeted couples and violently assaulted them. He once shot a man who was with his girlfriend, proceeded to rape the woman, then gave her money for a taxi to go home. While the woman was rushing away, he called her and asked if she will be attending her boyfriend's funeral and also asked her to go on a date with him. He once crushed his victim's skull with rocks and his brutality shocked the country. Cedric once blamed his traditional initiation ceremony as a turning point in his life. Traditional initiations are ceremonies where boys are taken to the bush and circumcised and welcomed into manhood. He says he was left in the bush for 3 months without food and water, and he described his initiation as barbaric. He began his hammer attacks after robbing a cafe of 400 rands using a hammer. The owner luckily survived. His next victim was slashed with a shifting spanner while serving him at his clothing store, and the crime spree continued. On the 18th of July 1997, he killed 5 people in one day. He attacked Asian, black and white men and women, and was finally captured in December 1997, where he cooperated with the police to locate his victims' bodies. He now sits at C-Max prison serving his sentence.
Number 3.
Cybran Jacobus Leducus, also known as Louis Van Schuur, the apartheid killer or the Dum Dum killer. A white former policeman who brought a hail of bullets to thieves who were mainly black African men who were breaking into premises to steal from white businesses. It is said that he shot over 100 black people who were mostly burglars who were brutally shot in cold blood by the security firm owner who used the law to shield his evil acts. South Africa's law at that time allowed gun carriers to shoot fleeing suspects in what would be deemed self-defense. He often claimed that his actions were not racially motivated, and he should be instead hailed and praised as a crime fighter. He referred to his killings as incidents. He installed silent alarms in several businesses, and he would respond to them by appearing without warning, well loaded with more than enough of ammunition, and emptying all his cartridges on fleeing and cowering suspects, using his 9mm parabellum. He made sure his suspects would not survive to tell the tale or face justice. All his actions were done during a period of severe racial tensions in South Africa, during a period when the National Party was negotiating to release all the freedom fighters of liberation movements, and unbanning many political parties and political leaders. Because of his killings in that period, people became skeptical whether there will be a new South Africa, where blacks and whites will live together with equal opportunities. Van Schuur killed without mercy and was well trained by the white government during his stint as a border police officer, the dog unit and a security guard. He murdered people who may have been petty thieves and unarmed because he felt that he was only doing his job. Van Schuur was finally arrested and convicted in 1992 for 7 murders and 2 attempted murders. He served only 12 years of his original 20-year sentence. When he was released, he left behind his daughter in the same prison where she was serving 25 years for hiring a hitman to kill her own mother. His daughter, Sabrina, claimed that her mother abused her verbally and physically, only because she had black friends. Louis stated that he is much of a product of his society and experiences and denies that any of his kills were motivated by bloodlust or hatred for Africans. He says he was only doing what he is supposed to, and that is protecting white businesses from black thieves who wanted to break in and steal. The police were always called to his killing incidents to pick up countless dead bodies, and often it would only end up as an inquest hearing, as most suspects would be dead and wouldn't face justice.
Number 2.
Wouter Basson, also known as Dr. Death. Dr. Basson, a former head of South Africa's secret chemical and biological warfare project. Dr. Wouter Basson is a cardiologist and head of the secret program called Project Coast, where one of his tasks was the killing of 200 SWAPO political prisoners. He completed research and extensive studies as a chemical warfare expert, and he used his knowledge to create ways to poison and kill enemies of the apartheid government with biological weapons. His trial began in 1999, a few years after the fall of the apartheid government of the white minority rule, and he was almost immediately acquitted for his role in the 200 deaths committed in Namibia, as the High Court ruled they cannot judge him on crimes committed in other countries. Later on, the Constitutional Court overturned the High Court's ruling and concluded that he should be held accountable for crimes committed outside South Africa.
It's taken the Health Professions Council 15 years to investigate and adjudicate a complaint against Dr. Wouter Basson. The head of the apartheid government's chemical weapons program, Basson supplied soldiers with cyanide capsules and helped produce tear gas and drugs such as Mandrax. More than a decade after the complaint was first filed, the cardiologist was finally found guilty of medical misconduct.
Dr. Death's Project Coast created smart poisons and chemical agents that were mainly created to target black people. He hoarded cholera, anthrax and other pathogens and chemical agents in order to start a pandemic. Black men were tied, smeared with gel and left to see if they will make it through the night alive. He created sugar laced with salmonella, cigarettes with anthrax, and chocolates with botulism and whiskey with herbicides, in order to kill black people. He created LSD and other drugs for the consumption of black people. and also created a cyanide tablet, which would be used by the Apartheid government's South African Defence Force in order to commit suicide when captured. The cardiologist is still working as a medical practitioner despite his atrocities and crimes against humanity. In January 2021, Mediclinic stated that they cannot stop him from practicing as he is still a registered doctor. Throughout his trial for his past accusations, the South African taxpayers have been paying his legal fees, as he was working for the government during his Project Coast in the 1980s. He stated that he was only using his knowledge to serve his country and its people, and he believed the ANC had its own biological weapons, which were provided by Russia and Cuba. He also created crowd control chemicals such as tear gas and was also involved in developing a vaccine that will cause infertility amongst black people and would have been administered without their knowledge. His work was to create pathogens and substances that would not be detected in post-mortem and could be laced in everyday items such as food, water, cigarettes and treats.
Basson does not agree with the verdict handed down by the Health Professions Council of South Africa. He maintains that he did not hurt anyone, not even a bruise or a scratch. Basson, a cardiologist, was also accused of making available cyanide capsules for distribution to operatives for use in committing suicide. Basson was acquitted in 2002 by the High Court in Pretoria on criminal charges relating to the same conduct. Speaking on AM Live, Basson says he did not feel like he betrayed his morals and ethics as a doctor. He says the chemicals they produce were intended to protect people, to stop them from killing and hurting themselves and from burning the environment.
Number 1.
Moses Sitaler, also known as the ABC murder. This notorious serial killer was sentenced to 50 years imprisonment for each of the 38 murders, 12 years imprisonment for each of the 40 rapes, and 5 years imprisonment for each of the 6 robberies. In total, he is serving a consecutive 2,410-year sentence as of December 5, 1997. Moses Sitaler was born on November 17, 1964. He is a serial killer who committed the ABC murders. This was because they took place in Atteridgeville, Boksburg and Cleveland. His father died when he was only 5, and his mother abandoned the impoverished family. He spent 3 years in an orphanage where he claimed he was sexually violated and brutally mistreated. He ran away from the orphanage to look for his mother, but his mother sent him back to the orphanage. He escaped again and eventually moved in with his older brother. He began his raping spree in his 20s, claiming 3 victims before being caught and sent to prison. While in prison, he himself was sexually assaulted by other prisoners. In 1994, shortly after his release, he began his brutal year. He often pretended to be a businessman and offering women work, going so far as to invent a fictional charity organization. Once he had gained his victims' trust, he would lure to walk them through secluded fields where he would then overpower, rape and strangle them. By 1995, he had claimed over 30 victims, igniting a nationwide panic. In some cases, he would call the victims' families and taunt them. During his arrest, police were forced to shoot him twice after he charged them with an axe. They wounded him before taking him into custody, where he eventually confessed to the murders.
I think he's making all the women scared, and then I don't feel very good about it. And when we go around in town or whatever, because we don't know where he stays, so I'm very scared and we don't know what to do.
During his trial, press reports emerged stating that he was HIV positive and he receives treatment for the virus while in prison, but unfortunately his wife and child died of the disease.
No. But you didn't have sex from them in this one of them? No, I didn't go for, I was not in a holiday. I was crossed. I was hurt. I was aggressive.
South Africa's most prolific serial killer to date, Moses Sitaler, stands convicted of 38 slayings in a series of murders. committed between January and October 1995. His victims, all females who were apparently lured or transported to outlying fields where they were beaten, stripped, raped, and strangled with articles of their own clothing. Several victims were found with hands tied behind their backs, and one still wore a blindfold. Many were left with pieces of clothing draped across their faces, as if to prevent them from staring at their killer in death. South African authorities, virtually overrun by serial killers in the wake of apartheid's collapse, consulted XB agent Robert Ressler in their search for the killer. Working in conjunction with Dr. Mickey Pistorius, Ressler concluded that the murders in all three communities were linked. President Nelson Mandela was concerned enough about the crime wave to cancel a scheduled trip abroad, appearing in Boksburg with high-ranking justice officials, where he appealed for public help in tracking the strangler. Sitauler once contacted a big newspaper company and identified himself as the man that is so highly wanted, describing his murders as an act of revenge for a prior miscarriage of justice. He claimed he had been arrested in 1978 for a crime he didn't do. Specifically, he claimed it was a false rape accusation that made him spend 14 years in prison, where he was abused and tortured by fellow inmates. He also stated that his parents and sister had died while he was in prison and he was not allowed to bury them. Sitauler is widely considered South Africa's worst serial killer, even though he was often described as a respectful, handsome and charming man. Most of his victims were enticed to their assaults, and often deaths, in broad daylight, with promises of employment opportunities that would never materialize. He instead raped and strangled his victims one after the other. Police investigations revealed mass graves. Forensic experts recovered 10 bodies, in varying degrees of decomposition, over the next 48 hours. Media attention was so intense throughout the recovery operation, that even President Nelson Mandela visited the scene of the grisly discoveries. During his trial, the judge made a statement saying that Sitauler is very fortunate that the death penalty had been abolished less than 2 years ago, after the fall of apartheid.
For more content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel in South Africa. Thanks for watching this video.